Hello everybody, and welcome to the last video in our beginner cross stitch series where we're working on this. What is this one called? It's called Spring by the Sea canvas by Joy Sunday. Today we are going to put in the finishing touch stitches. We are going to make all of these little guys French knots. I don't know what these are supposed to be. This is spring, so they're not falling leaves. I don't know if it's just garbage flying around in the air. They're like light and pretty colors, so maybe it's just reflections of the sunshine off of, waves crashing into the sea. I don't know, but I think they'll be more fun as French knots instead of little X's. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to work on the back stitch. I'm going to teach you back stitch, but then we're going to alter this so that it looks nicer than this. I don't like that kind of liney stuff, but I will teach you the basics of how to do French knots and back stitch. So we are going to start first with French knots, which are my favorite stitch in the whole world. They make the prettiest things. So let's learn some French knots. All right, so usually on a pattern, when you see a French knot listed, it will show you which hole to go in. Now, in this case, we are going to I'm just going to choose that for every square that's filled in, I'm going to put the French knot in the bottom left-hand hole. So normally, if it's printed on the pattern or on the canvas, it would show surrounding that hole. So we're just going to pretend that that's what it says. So we're going to start our French knot in that bottom left-hand hole. So got to find that hole. All right, so you bring your thread through, make sure it's secured at the back, and then you want to hold the thread in your finger. Not too tight. It can be a little loose because you're going to come in behind, you're going to pick up that thread, you're going to loop around once, twice. Whoops. Let's try that again. It's hard. I have an awkward angle here because the camera's in the way of my vision. So loop around once, loop around twice. Okay, so I have 2 loops on that thread. Then you're going to go back down the same hole. Don't go all the way through yet. At this point, tug your thread so that it's way down near the bottom of the canvas. So it's touching the canvas. And then hold on to that thread while you pull through. And then just keep on holding right until the bitter end. And then you have a beautiful French knot. So it sits up on the canvas a little bit. Sorry, it's hard to get a real side view there. And it looks almost like a little flower or a bead. And it is so pretty. This is sort of like the most standard way. So now we will go up the next hole that's that purple color. If I can find the hole, there we go. And let's do that again. So again, pull it tight through the canvas, make sure it's snug. Then you're gonna hold that thread off to the side. Your needle is pointing towards your finger. You're not pointing towards the canvas. You're not going around this way. You're going around, you're pointing towards your finger. So go around once, go around twice. All right, so you have 2 on there. Go back down the same hole, and then don't pull tight yet, or don't pull through yet. Pull nice and tight. Get your knot all ready to go right at the bottom and pull through. If you don't pull your thread right to the bottom of your needle like that, what you're going to end up with is a loose and like a really loose knot that flops around, and it's kind of ugly. So let me just finish these 3 French knots, and then we can do some experimenting with different sizes of knots over on the side. So again, I'm pointing towards my finger. I start at the top, I loop around once, I loop around twice. So I'm not pulling super hard away. I'm not wailing that thread away. I'm leaving it loose enough that I can get my needle around twice. Get it right down to the canvas. Hold on until we get it all the way through. This is going really well. All right, so we're just gonna play here. I am gonna rip these knots out afterwards because they're not even on the pattern. This is just so we can play with different types of knots. So we're gonna try going. So a regular French knot is 2 times around and back down the same hole. So there's our regular French knot for reference. On the next one, I am going to go around the needle 3 times. 1, 2, 3 times and back down the same hole. We're still going to do everything the same. We're going to pull nice and taut as we go down. And you'll see it has made a slightly higher, slightly bulkier French knot. So 3 times around is okay. Let's try, I've never even tried this before. Let's just experiment. Let's experiment going 4 times around. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a whole new world for me. Let's see what we make. Okay, it does come up quite high on the needle, you can see. So I'm not confident that this is gonna look good. But let's try it. Well, it worked. It made a very proud sitting knot. I'm gonna test afterwards to also see if these unravel, these bigger ones. Let's try just doing a loose one. So a regular 2, whoops, let's not over exaggerate. A regular 2 times around, but without pulling it down and tight. You'll see what it made there. A very flat, wide knot, a little messy. All right, so if you don't pull it down nice and taut, you're gonna end up with something like that. There's even a big loop in it. So that's why we always pull taut. And the other thing that I have not ever tried, which we're gonna try, is what happens if we only go around 1 time. The knot might not be big enough. It might just pull right through. Nope. It's a little teeny tiny, not even worth it knot. So there you go. We have our regular French knot properly executed, going around 3 times rather than 2, going around 4 times, and then not being careful, and that made a really ugly, messy knot, and a teeny tiny 1 time around knot. Now, what I want to do to test these, yeah. So you'll see our original French knot still looks good after being manhandled. The 3 time around knot still looks decent. The 4 time around was not able to keep its structure after being manhandled. The messy knot did not keep its structure after being manhandled. This guy kept his structure, but he's too small. So if you do the French knots carefully and properly, you'll end up with a nice knot that's really not able to be ruined by touching and handling it. And then these other experiments, they didn't work quite as well. Okay, so I am moving along from French knot to French knot, still on this dark purple color. And what I'm doing in the back, I don't want this thread where I jump from one to the other to be all loosey-goosey, because I don't want, if the front gets touched, for these knots to start pulling away. So in order to keep it nice and taut, I'm sorry, I'm using that word a lot, but it's the only word that works. When I'm jumping, I have to jump from here to here. So I'm just going under a few strands of Aida in order to get over there and to keep the tension on for when I do my French knot. That way these knots, you saw with the ones that sit too proud, how once you rub on them and manhandle them, that they come up and they look loose. So we don't want that to happen. So I'm just making sure to keep tension on everything as I do these knots. Okay, I hope this gives you enough of an idea of how to do French knots and how to make them look nice. I'm going to finish up the French knots and then I will come back and we'll talk about backstitch. All right, let's talk about backstitch. So backstitch is meant to do outlining and to make things pop. So if you think like you have an eyeball and you stitch around the eyeball to make it pop, stuff like that. So basic outline of big objects and little detail within. Now for this cross stitch, I really didn't like the stepped and kind of, I don't know, like really basic and childish outlining. So while you could exactly follow this, I've made my own outlining and I'll show you that in a minute. Let's first just talk about what backstitch is. So backstitch is a way to make these lines. For a 14 count kit, you use only one strand out of your thread, and for an 11 count you would use 2 strands. So starting your backstitch is a little bit more difficult. Because it's more difficult to secure the thread at the back, because you only have one thread. It doesn't hold quite as tight. So this is where you see people starting to make knots and stuff. I don't like making knots, so I go through and I secure the thread down, and then I just go through the last one extra time, and now it's really secure. So for backstitch, it's going to be 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Let's just, so for example, if I wanted to just go in a straight line, if I just go up, down, then up, I either need to come up the same hole I just went down and undo my stitch, or else I have to start up here and it's going to be a broken line. Well, that's no good. So that's why backstitch was invented. So for backstitch, you make your first part of the line, and then instead of coming up ahead, you have to you have to go backwards. So you come up on the next one. So you're going 2 steps forward and then 1 step back. That's how we fill in that hole. Okay, and then 2 steps forward. So you're not coming back up that hole, you're coming up the next hole, and then 1 step back. Two steps forward. So we just came back down through this hole. We're not going to come up this hole, we'll come up this one. So it's just basically making a chain. All right, so that's the very basic stitch, and it's very easy when you're going in a straight line. If you're looking to go in another direction, it's the same principle. You're just moving in a different direction. Now the tricky part comes when you're not only moving one hole at a time. So for some backstitch, you might need to go over 2, but then up 1, or over 3 and up 2. Like there's going to be lots of variation, but that's how you get more interesting line shapes, right? Rather than just this is just stepping every single time. You're just going in a straight direction and you're going from hole to hole. That makes it very simple, but I think our image is so pretty that I do not want to do that. So now that you know how to backstitch, let's talk about what we're going to do for this canvas. So what I've done is I have taken a picture of the canvas and I put it on my iPad, and I am going to put the backstitch where I think it should go. And this picture is, I took it before I finished the French knots, but you'll see I want to make this a little bit more rounded than the kit had it. So the kit had it being very step, 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 and I would like to make it a little bit more rounded. And what you want to do is you want to go from a hole to a hole. So you can't just draw a circle. You do have to pay attention to where the holes are. And by making these kind of more gradual transitions where you're coming diagonally over 2 stitches, you can make it a little bit more natural feeling. Okay, the other thing that I want to do is, rather than having this all stepped like this, I want to just connect the steps that are sticking out, and I have the printing on the canvas. Whoops, sorry, that was wrong. This is printed on the canvas, so it's going to be easy for me to just go from point to point to point. And it's going to make this not a perfect circle, but it's going to make it more circular than it already is now. So we're going to have more of an actual circle around the edge rather than this stepped appearance. So this is what I've come up with, and this is the stitching that I'm going to follow. So I'm going to use this as my pattern, and I'm going to follow it the way we would normally follow. Whoa. Too much stuff on my table. I'm going to follow it the way we would normally follow this pattern, but I'm going to follow mine instead. All right, and this can be in the embroidery hoop if you want. I am just going to leave it out for now as long as I'm still having a good time. So the easiest part for me to do is going to be the circle around, because I don't need to look at my pattern for that. So basically what I'm doing is I'm going from point to point of this. Now normally you would follow the pattern. My next stitch would be down here, then I'd go across, but I'm not going to do that. Now you only want to go about 4, maximum 5 holes distance in between the points that you hit. The reason for that being that you don't want your stitching to get flippy floppy. So this is a little bit floppy. If we went much longer than those 4 holes, it would be really floppy, and it wouldn't make a nice pretty circle. It would make something that just rolled across your canvas. So you want to pull this back stitching nice and firm. You don't want to wail on it, because you don't want to bunch up your fabric because you pulled too tight, but you do want it nice and snug. So I give it a good tug every time I go through on either side of the canvas. And you'll see I'm just going to the next spot that I want to go when I'm coming up from the bottom, and then back to where I ended off in the front. So 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I've now finished the circle around here, and as you can see, it's not a perfect circle, but it looks pretty good. Once we wash the canvas, you won't see any of that printing underneath, so it's going to look great. When you get a pattern, like the canvas actually had the backstitch printed on it. Some of the newer canvases don't. And the reason is, once we did all this stitching, we covered up any of the backstitch notations that were on the canvas, except for the ones that were in the blank canvas area. So I generally prefer if they don't leave the back stitching marks on the canvas, except for in this case, it was very handy when we were going around the circle. It'll be handy for doing the bird's wings, but for going around the back stitch we were supposed to be doing here, it's useless because it's all covered up. That's why you need your pattern. And we are using this as the pattern. I've printed off what I drew. It's not perfect. It's not as clear as it would be on the canvas, but you'll see I'm probably going to start somewhere maybe around here. So I'm going to go straight up. I'm going to the second last bit of red. I'm going to go up 2 and over 1 to get here. Then I'll go all the way straight up until I get the second last red here. And then again, I'm going to go up 2 and over 1. Can you see that? I think you could see it. Up 2 and over 1 up there as well. Then I'm going to go up 1 and then up 2 over 1. So that's what I'm going to follow here. And I'll bring you along for that. This is going to be kind of boring to watch, so I won't show you too much of it, but the idea is that you want to find what holes to go into. So you want to go in where there's a hole. You don't want, I mean, you can do it, but you don't want to be sticking your needle up halfway in between. You have to push really hard and you have to jiggle it around. You can get halfway through, but we want to make life easy. So we want to find the holes that we're going to. You always want to just landmark and then count how many up, how many over do you need to go. Okay, we are done. I have completed all of the back stitching, including this boat here. I made it look a little bit like there's waves coming up, and I think everything looks really good. I think it looks so much better than the pattern had it. I'm really happy with how the trees turned out. This one's nice and bushy. It's behind the house, and then this one is just a big giant old tree. My bird looks cute. I really like the French knots. I am going to put the original without the back stitch over here so you can see and compare the difference that back stitch makes. It really brings out the picture. It's totally worth it. Like, look at the difference between how the trees look before and after the back stitching. It just really makes the picture. So like I said, we get to go to the best part now, which is the washing. I am going to get a bowl of pretty warm water and we are gonna have a look. Okay, I feel like this is slightly dangerous because I have a big bowl of water with my phone perched right over it, but we are gonna go with it. And so I have a little bit of dish soap in there. Here's my pattern with the printing, and we say, bye-bye, printing. Already, you can immediately see it starting to run, and this water should get pretty dark looking as the ink comes out. Okay, and we're gonna leave this. This is pretty hot, like it's quite warm to the touch. It's not boiling hot. Obviously, I can stick my fingers in it, but we're gonna leave this for, I don't know, we'll check it in about 15 minutes. So I'm gonna give it a soak. I'm gonna keep moving it around just a little bit. and we should see in about 15 minutes, probably most of this printing should be off, and we'll just check to see if there's any little spots that still need some help. But you can see it's already really starting to come off. Okay, I have moved over to the sink. It's been about 10 minutes and you'll see almost all of the ink is gone. There's just a little bit of, red shading left. So just a few little marks, and the water's quite dirty. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna change the water, leave it for another 5 minutes or so. And I don't believe even that tiny little shadow of red that's in the corner, that's not gonna show if I display this. So even if that's not completely gone, as long as the rest is gone, I'm very happy with how this washed out. All right, so it's just been another like 2 minutes. I am so happy with how this turned out. I'm gonna carefully squeeze it out. I'm not gonna like twist it or wail on it because I don't want to pull any stitching out of joint. My first drying is just going to be this paper towel. Okay, I want to get the majority of the water out on something like paper towel that I can just throw out. And I want to just double check that there's no more ink coming out. Looks like there may be just a little bit of ink right there, or it might be just the shadow of the back stitch coming from in behind, but it's not enough to really notice. Okay, I'm gonna roll it up in the paper towel, give it a good squeeze, and the paper towel is pretty damp, so I am going to go ahead with this clean towel and just give it another roll. Well, it's a mostly clean towel anyways. Looks like there's a mustard stain on it, but we won't put the mustard stain on the canvas. All right, and then we're just gonna leave that to dry. And look at how amazing it looks. Look at how great those French knots look and the back stitch. It's so pretty. Those French knots just pop off the canvas and they look so cute. Again, I'm not really sure what they're supposed to be. Magic sparkle, I guess. I am so pleased with this turned out. It looks so great. Looks even better than the kit did. Our circular back stitch is looking really good. Everything just looks amazing. I'm just so happy. I'm happy with the colors. I'm happy with the project. I'm really glad that as a project that we could do together, that we picked one, or I picked one, I guess, that turned out so nicely, even nicer than the kit. The kit was already kind of cute, and this just really brought it to life. So thank you so much for joining me with this beginner cross stitch series. On our channel, we do all sorts of different types of projects. We like to say if it's crafty and it's fun, we do it. So this channel is run by me and my friend Martha. You'll see Martha from time to time with different crafts than I do, and just keep watching. All right, have a great day, everyone. Bye.